Now, sometimes we have to use numbers in our writing. It's unavoidable in some places. And the thing with numbers is that they can disturb the narrative flow, because when you're reading something, you really don't want, you want to have as few distractions as possible that take you out of the reading experience, because often when you're reading and the writing is good, you get very immersed in it. So I like to avoid numbers as much as I possibly can. And certain numbers, of course, are unavoidable, because when they're very large, like say 2,500, it draws more attention to itself to actually write out 2,500 because it's so unusual. But especially in journalism, we do have rules like house style rules, like numbers up to 9. You know, you write out, because that doesn't disturb the reader experience. Once you start getting to 10, then or 10 or 11 or you know, sort of numbers above that range. But 10 is actually okay, because it's a very short word. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21 and all that, then you start to use numbers, because it's more disruptive to have the actual the word there. So, you know, you can pick your style, but in general, I try to minimize the amount of distractions that you can visually see in the text. Okay, and that's so that you don't break the spell again. Now, the same thing could be said of job titles. With job titles, often, you know, they're capitalized, and or the title of an organization, which is also usually capitalized. Again, visually, it takes you out of the experience a little bit. It's a very subtle effect, and normally you can get away with it. But you know, I try to avoid it. Only when I can't avoid it do I have it. It's all about this idea that I've mentioned before, which is no unnecessary ceremony. You know, just describe things until you can't, you know, anymore. Now, let's have a look at this. It wasn't until last week that the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, RBNZ, made the announcement. Now, to me, that looks unduly complex, right? It's visually, it's disturbing. It's a little bit ugly, and so I don't want readers to have to confront that kind of a sentence. So this is a lot cleaner. It wasn't until last week that New Zealand's central bank made the announcement. That's much fewer. New Zealand, of course, you have to capitalize, because it's a country, and you can't really describe it in any other way. So that visually doesn't stop you in your tracks. It doesn't take you out of the experience. So look for opportunities to lowercase. Here's an example of a job title. Mark Kelly, Managing Director of Trico Services, wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning. Now, it's the same problem as before, all those capital letters distracting. This is so much better. Mark Kelly, Managing Director of Trico Services, wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning. Okay? Now, this next one is particularly bad. Mark Kelly, the Managing Director of Trico Services, wakes up at 5 o'clock every morning. Now, the reason for that is because when you put the in there, you're actually beginning a description, the managing director, and then you've got the capital letter title. So it's kind of a bit off, okay? The introduces a description, so you should really lowercase managing director, because you're describing the job rather than naming the title. Now, I'd also say Britain's Prime Minister, David Cameron, will visit Washington this week. Okay, Britain's Prime Minister, so Britain's Prime Minister, lowercase, David Cameron, will visit Washington this week. Now, the Prime Minister is a clear descriptive term in that sentence. But, you know, with some newspapers, and including the Wall Street Journal, you know, you've got the person's name. When it comes directly after the title, in this kind of form, British Prime Minister David Cameron. Okay, they have a house style where when it comes in that form, you uppercase everything. So it's because it's not so obviously a description, but it's a title. Okay. Now, Managing Director Mark Kelly. That's another way that you'd write it if you were coming in at it that way. It's a house style thing, but I've also worked on publications that would say, you know, British Prime Minister David Cameron in lowercase. So there are lots of style differences that you can consider. Which approach do you prefer?